All right, so thanks so much for doing this, Natalia. My first question that I have for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started in the mental health community.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me today, Laszlo. Yeah, my name is Natalia. I started in the mental health community almost 10 years ago when I started my bachelor's degree in psychology at Eckerd College. It's a very small liberal arts school down in St. Petersburg, Florida. And that's where I, like I said, received my undergrad degree in psychology. And then from there, I went to Westchester University in Pennsylvania to receive my master's in school counseling. So I have always kind of been fascinated with the psychology field and learning about people, how the human brain works, how we interact with one another. And psychology is a really broad field. So I figured I kind of needed to narrow that down a little bit and figured exactly what kind of population I wanted to work with within that psychology realm. And so I came down to school counseling. I felt really comfortable in the school environment. I love working with children. So I started at a middle school in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I was working there for about 5 years. And I really, really enjoyed the work that I was doing there. I loved the students, I loved the team, but I also was kind of wearing a lot of different hats as the school counselor. Not only was I helping to support the mental and emotional well-being of the children that were there, but sometimes there was also other expectations. And so I wanted to just really start this company, start this business that I just started in the last year called Wildflower Counseling, and just make that solely about counseling, about therapy, and just being able to just spend my day really talking to individuals who are looking for more extensive support than what I was able to provide in the school counseling position that I was in. So, like I said, in the last 2 years, I received my LPC, which stands for Licensed Professional Counselor here in Pennsylvania, kind of just a fancy way of saying therapist. But I started wildflower counseling just about a year ago and have kind of hit the ground running and seeing clients and working with them individually in this kind of setting.
So what kind of clients do you see? Because I know you said you worked in the middle school setting. Other psychologists that I talk to, they work with all sorts of populations, with kids, adults, the elderly. So where does that leave you? What sort of who do you focus on? Which population do you work with closely?
Sure. Yeah, my population right now is really ages 16 to 30. So I'm working with teens that are a little later in the high school years. A lot of the teens that I work with right now are really juniors and seniors in high school who are preparing for kind of the next steps after high school, whether they're exploring college options or just post-secondary. So maybe just looking to find a job in some sort of career field. And then I have a lot of young adults that I work with. So a lot of primarily females right now who are right around like 24, 25, and 26. So they've graduated from college or they've been in the work field for the career field for a while. And now they're looking to kind of make some changes in their life. So that's kind of primarily the age range and the demographic of people I'm working with now.
hmm What are the types of modalities that you use with these types of populations? Because I'm sure you've heard of EMDR, CBT, but what do you do for your particular practice?
Sure. So I primarily do two different types. One is called solution focused therapy, SFT. And essentially, this is a goal oriented, future thinking approach. So a lot of the work that I do with those clients and with those students is thinking about where do they really see themselves in 5, 10, maybe even 15 years, and just trying to help them make changes in their life now that will just be long term and helping them to build self esteem, build self confidence around their interests and their passions and their values, and making sure that that aligns with where they see themselves in the world and where they want to be in the next few years. So that's the solution focused approach. And then another approach that I usually tie in is actually like a spiritual counseling approach. So this isn't for everybody, but for those that are interested, I do kind of like different Bible study practices with them. We might do meditations at the beginning or at the end of each session. We'll do some breath work, some yoga. So, kind of a range of different spiritual practices with them. But I always love to incorporate that for those that are open to it. So, those are primarily the two big modalities that I work on right now with students and with clients.
Yeah, I always feel like when people ask the question, how do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? That's always the daunting question.
Yes. Yes, it's a huge question and so much can change in even the span of like a week, let alone a year or 5 years. And so it's a huge question and I think high schoolers especially get a lot of questions about, what colleges do they want to go to? What career field do they see them in? What major do they want to go to? And there's a statistic out there that the average college student changes their major 4 times while they're in college, just trying to figure out again, where do they kind of see themselves long term and how does that career maybe align with those values and passions. And so that's kind of the work that I try and do now is make that question seem a little less daunting by trying to kind of break it up into smaller steps and smaller goals for themselves. And again, just making sure that everything that they're doing now is aligning with the future that they really see for themselves.
hmm And this other approach that you talked about, this approach where like you use Bible study,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So, um, like how do you sort of incorporate that into like therapy? Because oftentimes what drives people to do things is guided by their faith. So is that something like that you took into account when you were doing that approach, that Bible study based approach?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, with the spiritual, it can be really again different and everybody's kind of path and their personal connection with spirituality, whatever that higher power is that they might believe in looks really different. And so for me, I always try and just be really respectful of where they are right now with their journey in spirituality and what they believe in, and then just trying to help them to sometimes make sense of why things are happening to them. Sometimes people get really focused on like the present moment and the here and now, or even their past, and thinking about why did this happen? And sometimes it's hard to just put your faith in something other than yourself and something bigger than ourselves. And that's a lot of sometimes what I do is just pulling from specific scripture verses in the Bible or other just therapeutic and spiritual teachings again with meditation and breath work to help offer more grounding exercises for those that might find themselves in a place where their mind tends to spiral a little bit. And so a lot of that spirituality work that I do is either, like I said, kind of like scripture verses and a Bible approach for those that have a more Christian view of spirituality. And then for those that aren't really necessarily identify as Christian, but are interested in just a higher power in general, a lot more of the modalities that I do are meditative, are grounding exercises, breath work, things like that.
hmm So my next question is, tell me about how those like approaches, how those approaches have been effective. I don't know what sorts of research have you done with regarding these approaches that you use, but what has the data shown in how effective these two approaches are?
Yeah, that's a really excellent question, Laszlo. And to be fully transparent, I haven't done a ton of research on it. My experience more with spirituality counseling comes from Messiah College. Over the summer, I took 2 spiritual counseling classes there. One was more marriage and family based, and one was just different spirituality techniques and things like that. And to be honest, it's not a super, at least from the research that I've done, it's not a very common form of therapy for a lot of people. So those that are interested in it are typically seeking me out. So they see that I've kind of put it on my website that I'm a Christian myself. I do incorporate spirituality practices for those that are interested. And so they've kind of sought me out. But just in terms of, like I said, the data, I'm not specifically sure in terms of any sort of research, but I have found that for a lot of clients, just being able to put their faith in something bigger than themselves offers a lot of comfort. And a lot of support in terms of maybe their own anxieties that they're experiencing or those really low lows that sometimes come with depression or depressive thoughts and tendencies. So just being able to remind themselves that either, maybe God has a plan for us if that's something that they believe in, or reminding themselves that different energies in the universe work in certain ways if that's something that they believe in, just kind of again is a way to externalize what they're experiencing and be able to just focus on the world as a whole and a big picture rather than themselves, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. My
Cool.
next question is like what impact does doing this kind of work have, not just on yourself, but in other words, like what have you learned in doing this kind of work, and what do you hope to learn or learn something new?
Sure, yeah. I mean, this work has been so impactful just in my life. I'm 29 years old. I'm kind of just really getting started with it, and it's something that I'm really really excited about. I've always wanted, and I think most people would agree, we want to have a profession, we want to have a job that we feel excited about. This is work is so much of our life that we want to be able to find something that we truly enjoy. And so to be able to wake up and meet with different clients, work with different people, hear their stories, help them make sense of things that have happened in their life and where they see themselves moving forward has just been such a blessing. And something that I want to learn, something I'm really passionate about is actually ecotherapy. If this is something you're familiar with, the idea is just
No.
kind of yeah, no, it's okay. The idea is just really getting outside in nature and using different therapeutic techniques outside to help again with anxiety, depression, things like that. And so it's something that I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm very interested in exploring over the next few years and hoping to incorporate that more into my practice. Right now, I offer an in-person approach that's called walk-in talks. And essentially what that means is I meet people at a local trail or a local park, kind of in the middle of where we might both live, and we just walk and talk for those 50 minutes, exactly what it sounds like. And I think just getting outside in nature, getting some exercise, even it's cold outside here in Pennsylvania, but feeling the air, feeling the sunshine can also just be really therapeutic. And so exploring more of what different techniques look like in the ecotherapy field is definitely something I'm interested to learn more about.
Oh yeah, this kind of being immersed in nature. That's a interesting way of looking at things.
Yes, 100%. I think it has a lot of benefits that people oftentimes, don't think about. So just exploring more what that looks like.
Yeah, I want to get to the question of like what when you're in these sessions with these people, like what's sort of the common themes that you notice when working with patients, what yeah, I guess what have you heard from people that you worked at that said, like, you know, since I'm seeing you, I've learned a lot about this, this, and this. What are some of the common themes that you notice when working with clients?
Sure. I think two big ones that really stick out to me right now. One is just learning to focus a little bit more on what we can control. So much of anxiety and depressive tendencies can be us really internalizing certain things. And sometimes those things are completely outside of our control. And so, one of the things that I really focus on with my clients is just trying to really explore what are the things that I can control in this situation and how can I put my energy and my time towards focusing on that rather than being really concerned about the things that are outside of my control and putting time and energy there. Oftentimes, I think focusing on what we cannot control leads us to have lower self-esteem, leads us to have some thought spiraling, it's called, and it just can be harder to again kind of accept who we are and what we're doing and how we're trying to maybe help others when we're focusing on what's outside of our control. So
Yeah,
that's a big theme that I notice. Another one that I do a lot with clients is goal setting. So as I mentioned with solution focused, it's all about goal setting. That is like one of the biggest techniques that's used in that approach. And so what I do is I kind of work with clients on what is maybe like a big goal that they have for themselves, and what are some smaller goals that we can talk about and work on just 1 week at a time. I usually have them just pick one smaller goal for 1 week to do, to then build up to that larger goal. So what that does is it just kind of helps to make that larger goal seem a little bit more manageable and attainable in a way that it's broken down into more specific, just manageable tasks, I guess.
mm-hmm. Lastly, to kind of wrap this up,
Mhm.
like what can people take away from this? Let me back that up. What can really mental health professionals who are entering this kind of field, like who want to really dive deeper into the mental health realm, what advice, tips, strategies would you advise people entering in the mental health community to sort of get them prepared into this really uh fun but challenging field because it is, I imagine.
Sure. Yeah, there's kind of three things that I think come to mind. The first one is exploring why. Why do you want to do this? Are you looking to help others? Are you looking to gain insight yourself? And just exploring, yeah, what is bringing you to the profession? I think that's really important for anybody who's looking to work in a helping field or a mental health field to really explore the purpose behind that. A second one that I would recommend is just exploring all the different modalities that are out there. As you mentioned at the beginning here, Laszlo, there's EMDR, there's solution focus, there's so many different CBT, DBT, there's so many different forms of therapy. And I think if you're able to even talk to somebody that's worked in each of those different fields and get an idea of what really resonates with you as a therapist or as a mental health professional, what, do you think you would be the most supportive in? I remember in my school counseling courses back when I was getting my master's and they talked about solution focused. I really loved that approach as opposed to some of the other approaches that we talked about. I just found this one particularly to be something that I resonated with, that I thought could be really helpful for people with the population I want to work with. So again, just exploring those kind of different techniques, the different modalities that's out there and finding one that really works for them. And I think the third thing I'm thinking of, and you've probably heard this before, Laszlo, but just self-care, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
yourself. I think in this specific profession, a lot of it now is online, which is really fantastic because it does offer flexibility for people. However, it can be hard to create kind of that work and work life balance when you're also working at home. Like right now I'm working in my bedroom. So it can
Mm-hmm.
just be hard to kind of create that separation, I think. And so just making sure that, if you're seeing clients in the evening, then you take the mornings for yourself. Or if you're seeing clients in the morning, take the evenings for yourself. And just making sure that you're structuring your day in a way that you also get time for yourself to prioritize the goals that you may have, and just not making everything about the work that you're doing. As wonderful as it is, I think that we can't help others until we really help ourselves. So making sure that we're also taking care of ourselves as mental health professionals so that we can just show up and do the best work for our clients.
Yeah, I think self-care is so important because oftentimes, people are so stressed out. I mean, like just the way things are like now, fit like we talked about, things are way beyond our control, and people are like, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, it is. It's really hard. And it's, again, kind of easy to fall into some unhealthy coping patterns as well, coping mechanisms. I think that was a big thing over COVID, was that people had no idea, how am I now going to kind of sit at home all day, every day? And so also just still trying to like kind of come out of those habits and those coping strategies that we built for ourselves and create ones that are a little bit more sustainable, that are healthier, that are going to make us feel better, and just incorporating that more into our daily routines and habits.
All right.